Hey guys, welcome to Jack's Family Adventures. I'm Jack, and I wanted to pass some information to you guys about my first long haul in my 2023 Ram 3500 Laramie Crewcab Shortbed single wheel. So we had a family emergency come up last week where we had to put roughly 4,000 miles on my truck. We live in East Virginia and had to go to the center of Texas. So roughly 24 hours of driving each direction and roughly 2,000 miles. The first thing I want to talk about is the comfortability. This is really important for me because me and my family, we don't stop when we do these long drives. We did those 24-hour drives straight. We don't like to meddle around and do stops and stuff like that. So comfortability in this thing is key. It was the most amazing truck I've ever driven. I've driven Duramaxes and Power Strokes. I've driven F350s, 450s, 550s, as well as Chevy 3500s, and nothing compares to this thing. So if you do a lot of driving, you'll know you often get to where you're going with a lot of aches and pains. I did not. So I typically get aches and pains on my elbows from the armrest, usually in my driving knee, and then sometimes in my neck. After 24 hours straight driving from Virginia to Texas, no pains whatsoever. And then we turned around and did the same drive 4 days later, another 24 hours, 2,000 miles, no pains. Incredible. No other truck company can beat the comfortability of Ram. And then second thing that I want to go over was MPG. So obviously for heavy duties, the EPA doesn't state MPG. So did a little bit of real life highway driving this week. Not sure if I mentioned it, but it was me, my family of 6, including myself, and our luggage, which came out to about 1,000 pounds of payload. And I tested a couple of different speeds, 75, 85, 90, and got pretty decent gas mileage. So at 75 miles an hour, I got roughly 19.5 was my average when I was going 75, was my trip average for that on the highway. When I was going 85, it dropped down to roughly 18.7. And then I did a stint where I was able to go 90, and it went down to 18.3. So pretty decent mileage for a one-ton vehicle going down the highway at highway speeds. Talking about speeds, I was able to get this thing up to its max speed. I was curious how fast it could go. It is governed, I found out, which I was a little sad about. But it is governed at a pretty high rate. So these new 2023 Rams seem to be governed at 102 miles per hour, which obviously is still pretty fast if I'm towing anything. And obviously I'm not going to be driving that on a regular basis. But I was interested to see that it was governed. But something to note is that at 102 miles an hour, this thing handled phenomenally. And it was sitting at roughly 2,300 RPMs. So the engine was barely, it was just coasting. It was great. So it's good to know that, that the power and everything in this truck just can handle such fast speed without even blinking an eye. I had my last, I had an F550 before this, and I'd be lucky to get it to 85 going downhill. It was an old one, it was an 04, but still. Next thing that I wanted to note was DEF consumption. So it's got a 5.7 gallon tank. As I said, it was a 4,000 mile trip, and I left and it was full. When I got home, I was at 25% still left on my DEF. So pretty awesome. So rough math, empty or mostly empty with 1,000 pounds of payload in here, you can get roughly 5,000 miles on one tank of DEF. which is pretty good, especially for such a small DEF tank. A couple of things for drivability in this thing, a couple of the tech things. If you're thinking about getting the safety package that has the adaptive cruise control, I really suggest getting it. It works really well. It slows the car really well when it senses a lane that gets within the range that you've set it to. And then when the car gets out of the way, it gets back up to the speed you have it set to really quickly. And then also for stop and go traffic, if you didn't know, the thing works for stop and go traffic too. It senses the car and whatever speed it's going in front of you and matches that speed. If it's stopped, it will stop. And then once it starts going, it'll keep going all the way back up to whatever speed you set it to. So pretty awesome. One thing I disliked about the vehicle on the trip was the lane sense and the lane keeping assist. It's garbage on this truck. Honestly, that's probably the only bad thing that I've found about this truck since I've had it for a month is the lane keeping. Turn it on, and first off, it barely keeps you in the lane. It senses you're about to leave the lane, like right as you're coming up on the line. So if you got a vehicle next to you that is also riding the line, you could hit it. And then secondly, if you don't correct it yourself after about 3 to 4 seconds, it'll just continue on in that direction. So I tried it on straightaways and I tried it around a curve, and it really just didn't do a whole lot. The only thing that I really used it for and I kept it on for is, obviously I said doing 24 hours of driving. So when I was getting a little tired, it at least helped me stay a little bit more in the middle of the lane when I was getting tired. And then, and because my wife has a 2022 Dodge Durango RT, and I use the thing all the time in her car, and it works great in the Dodge Durango. But on this 2023 Ram 3500, I don't know if it has something to do with the sensors that are in these new mirrors that are on the 2023 or what, but it just doesn't work well at all. All right, guys, I hope you found some of these things helpful, interesting. Appreciate you watching. Get back with us for more videos. Thanks.